Welcome. I am Day of DHB Recovery Network. We all experience loss on so many levels. Over the past few years, I have personally experienced the loss of beloved family members. Some of these family members were elderly or ill. Some were children under the age of 18. Grief sits within. Let's walk together as we grieve one day at a time on this weekly blog that will be posted each Sunday at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Fair use. Grief one day at a time. 365 Meditations to Help You Heal After Loss by Alan D. Wolfett, PhD. January 22nd. Grief is not a disorder, a disease, or a sign of weakness. It is an emotional, physical, and spiritual necessity. The price you pay for love. The only cure for grief is to grieve. Rabbi Earl Grolman. Sometimes we think of our grief as a problem to be solved. We are in pain, and we need to find a way to make the pain go away. As if our grief is a headache or a sore shoulder. But our grief is not a problem or a disorder. It is not something to try to get rid of or go around. It is not bad. Instead, we must understand that grief is as much a part of life as love. Grief is not a problem to be fixed. It is a normal and necessary spiritual journey that can only be experienced. Yes, it is painful and challenging, but fully exploring and expressing the pain is the only way through. Life is love. Life is grief. May I have the courage to embrace both when they come my way. Fair use. January 23rd. You do not need to know precisely what is happening or exactly where it is all going. What you need is to recognize the possibilities and challenges offered by the present moment and to embrace them with courage, faith, and hope. Thomas Merton. This living in the present moment stuff can seem like nonsense, especially when we're grieving. We find ourselves constantly thinking about the past. We also seem to worry endlessly about the future and the present. It hurts. That's what. Nowhere is there a reprieve. Except. Maybe we can find an oasis of peace in the present moment. First of all, sometimes we can distract ourselves in the here and now with entertainment, such as browsing online or watching TV. We need such breaks from our grief every day. Second, we can embrace our memories, thoughts, and feelings as they arise. In the present moment, we can and need to actively engage with the pain of our grief. But third, we can also face the now with courage, faith, and hope. Yes, the present moment hurts, but it is also alive with possibilities. In grief, every new minute harbors a paradox. We mourn, but we also live. We can learn to do both. In the meditation, I will actively mourn today and work on embracing each new moment with courage, faith, and hope. January 24. January is the quietest month in the garden, but just because it looks quiet doesn't mean that nothing is happening. The soil, open to the sky, absorbs the pure rainfall, while microorganisms convert tilled under fodder unto usable into usable nutrients for the next crop of plants. The feasting earthworms tunnel along, aerating the soil and preparing it to welcome the seeds and bear roots to come. Rosalie Muller Wright. When our grief has gone outwardly quiet and we have withdrawn to the deepest parts of ourselves, it may seem like nothing is happening, like we are making no progress. But the necessary turning inward of grief is not truly stasis. Things are happening in our minds, hearts, and souls. We are remembering. We are working through challenging questions about the meaning of life and death. We are thinking and feeling. We are struggling with our spirituality. Soon we will need to share our grief outside of ourselves. We will need to mourn. But when we are quietest, we are preparing for the act of mourning and healing to come. The meditation. When my grief goes quiet, it means I am doing the necessary work of turning inward. January 25th. Be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. In the noisy confusion of life, keep peace in your soul. Max Ehrmann. We are each of us a child of the universe. We are all unique masterpieces. Our bodies are inhabited by one of a kind souls. Just by being born, we claimed our singular, glorious place in the constellation of humanity. We are wont to remember our own divinity when we are grieving. Our grief can make us feel small and insignificant. It ravages our self esteem, it diminishes us. But grief's destructiveness is merely an illusion. Yes, our earthly lives are torn apart right now and our souls are hurting, but truly our grief does not, cannot touch the unalterable fact of our timeless existence. Deep within our hurting souls is an inextinguishable flame of eternal glory and peace. The meditation. I am a child of the universe. In the noisy confusion of my grief, I am learning to keep peace in my soul. January 26. Helplessness is such a rotten feeling. There's nothing you can do about it. Being helpless is like being paralyzed. It's sickness. The cure calls for a monumental effort to stand up and start walking somewhere, anywhere. But that takes some doing. Chuck Barris. The helplessness of grief is a rotten feeling. While part of us realizes we had no control over what happened, Another part feels a sense of powerlessness at not having been able to prevent it. We would like to have our lives back the way they were, but we can't. We feel helpless over the way things are happening. Our grief paralyzes us. Our feelings of helplessness aren't really sickness, though. They're normal and natural. And surrendering to the reality that we are not in control is part of our grief work. But when we're ready, we can also take action. We can stand up and start walking somewhere, anywhere. We can and we must activate our grief, transforming it into mourning. We can't control what happens in our lives, but we can control what we do about it. It's a monumental effort, all right, but it's also transformative. We can be powerful in our powerlessness. The affirmation: I feel so helpless, yet I can stand up and start walking somewhere, anywhere. January 27th. Things to do today. Number one, get up. Number two, survive. Number three, go back to bed. Author unknown. Some days in grief are survival days. If we manage simply to get through the day, we've accomplished a lot. Not every day can be about progress or moving forward. Some days are about struggling to keep from falling back. Others are about backsliding like crazy. Something transformative happens when we survive such days. We learn that we can survive such days, and that fact bolsters our confidence for whatever comes next. We're not in control of our grief or of our lives, but we're learning that there is a measure of peace in learning to go with the flow. The affirmation: I will survive today. Some days that is enough. January 28th. Sometimes I just cry without knowing why. Author unknown. Sometimes we cry when they're, excuse me, sometimes we cry when we're thinking about the person who died. Crying is good. Tears help us realize our pent up feelings. But there's also another kind of crying I call borrowed tears. These are tears that spring up when we are touched by something random we see, hear, touch, taste, or smell, and we react with strong emotion. Borrowed tears often seem to come out of nowhere and are triggered by something we don't associate with the person who died and wouldn't normally have been upset about. Borrowed tears are called what they are called because we seem to be borrowing them from someone else's store of pain and memory. They're not ours. We might find ourselves crying at a sappy commercial on TV or seeing a little bird out our window. These things never made us sad before. Why are we crying now? We're crying because our hearts and souls are hurting and our emotions are tender. Think of it this way: if you press on your leg gently with your hand, it doesn't hurt. But if you break your leg and then press on it, even the slightest touch can hurt. Our hearts are broken now, and anything that touches our hearts, even slightly, may hurt them. This is normal and will pass as our hearts are healed. The meditation. I can borrow tears whenever I need them. I'll give them back when I'm done with them. Grief one day at a time. 365 Meditations to Help You Heal After Loss by Alan D. Wolfett. Read by me, Day, of DHB Recovery Network. I have come across other readings regarding grief. One is called It's Okay That You're Not Okay by Megan Devine. Another one called Good Grief by Granger E. Westberg. Fair use. Another one called I Wasn't Ready to Say Goodbye, Surviving, Coping, and Healing After the Sudden Death of a Loved One by Brooke Noel and Pamela D. Blair, PhD. I haven't read any of these books, but if you have, please feel free to share your thoughts, comments, and experiences regarding them. In the comments below, sharing your thoughts regarding the readings may help others get a glimpse of how they may want to proceed on their grief walk. They would be really appreciated. If you'd like to get more support while on your grief journey, remember that you are not alone, and many support groups in person and on Zoom. There is one by a Mother Pearl, and I don't think you can see this. Let's see. I will try to post it to this video. Yes, I will. But I will give you the information. It's the last Sunday of the month, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, and 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. The Zoom meeting ID is 598 584 5406. And the passcode is capital P 7, lowercase g 9, and uppercase G. Remember that you are not alone.